So thank you everyone for joining us for our early careers in the life sciences panel hosted by the LifeSci NYC Internship Program. We will begin our presentation shortly. To give you an overview, we will start with a quick blurb about our program, followed by introductions from our panelists today. Panelists will discuss their career paths and offer advice for students entering the life sciences field. The event will conclude with an opportunity for a Q&A session. And at any time, feel free to write any questions you have on the chat. We'll answer them at the end of the presentation. You'll also have the opportunity to ask any questions out loud by using the hand raise option on Zoom. And note that this session will be recorded and the video link will be shared by email following after the presentation. And in the meantime, my colleague Sharon has shared in the chat links to our program. And I'm going to go ahead and read some of our messages. So we have Alna, senior at neuroscience, interested in research. Karan, a human bio major at Hunter, and here in search of research opportunities. Tanima hopes everyone is doing great, majors computer engineering and planning to do a business minor first year in college. We have Mary attending Hunter, studying biology with a concentration in bioinformatics. Levy, a current junior at NYT, studying biotech. Maheen, a senior majoring in chemical and biomolecular engineering at NYU Tandon. Amanda, senior studying applied math, data science, interest in bioinformatics. Daniel just graduated NYU with a bio degree. Gabriella, major in psych, interested in research. Fardin, a junior studying computer science with a concentration in bioinformatics. Yukti, MPH student at Mount Sinai, interest in global health. Annan, second year doctoral student in biostatistics. Wow, we have a lot of messages. Thank you everyone for introducing yourself, and I will read them all, but I just want to be mindful of our time and get started. So I'm going to go ahead and start our career panel today. So to start off with, I just want to talk about the LifeSci NYC Internship Program. Sharon, if you could switch. Perfect, thank you. So the LifeSci NYC Internship Program is part of the city's initiative to grow the life sciences industry. It is New York City's Economic Development Corporation's 10-year, $1 billion initiative to grow the life sciences industry in New York City. We offered paid internships and part-time and full-time job opportunities for both undergrad and graduate students in either the science or business management track during the academic year as well as the summer. And since 2017, we have placed over 750 interns at over 180 companies and organizations. And currently we have over 50 open career-focused internships and jobs, with more coming in all the time. So this is essentially a single location where you can complete one application and have access to job listings at multiple companies. Essentially, we are doing all the research for you so you don't have to figure out which companies are currently hiring. And to start off, we have 4 panelists today, and I'm really excited to introduce you to them. So I'm going to go ahead and let Shiraz. Can you go ahead and introduce yourself first, please?
Hey, everyone. Glad to be here. My name is Shiraz Bheda. I was a bioinformatician at the Center for Precision Medicine and Genomics at Columbia University until just recently, and decided to look at other opportunities. But a little bit about my background. I am I guess like an analytics and statistician. So kind of like a data analytics, statistical analytics background. Went to Stevens Institute of Technology, got my master's of science there. And I'm a former financial analyst and investor. And I was looking to make a career transition into healthcare. And so I went the route of bioinformatics. So I'm happy to talk about my experiences and share my experiences today.
Thank you. Eddie, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Eddie Gadee. Right now, I work in Pfizer, but a little bit before I started working here, I got my master's degree in the spring of 2020. So right around the time that the pandemic pretty much hit. While I was working on my master's before I graduated, I applied to the LifeSci NYC internship program in 2019. And through that program, I was able to get placed in a startup biotech company where I was doing a lot of research on extracellular matrix to propose different substrates to enhance in vitro research and drug discovery. And I would say that that internship really helped propel forward my career in finishing my master's degree and giving me more experience to apply for what my dream job was. I've always wanted to work at Pfizer in research and development. And with where I am now, I work on many different programs and modalities to help make vaccines come to life for viruses that are challenging to combat these days, whether or not we currently have a vaccine for them.
Thank you, Eddie. Ragini, would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, everyone. My name is Ragini. Thank you so much, LifeSci, for organizing this. Super excited to be here today. So I'm currently a product engineer at Lilu. Lilu is a women's health startup focused on making tech-enabled devices to help moms with breastfeeding and breast pumping. And my background is in biomedical engineering. I completed my master's in biomedical engineering from Columbia last winter. And I actually started my career at Lilu through an internship at hosted through LifeSci. And that eventually got converted to a full-time job. And I work on R&D for medical devices, so specifically more on the hardware side. I've worked on a couple of wearable devices for women's health, ranging from surgical tools for breast cancer to wearable breast pumps. And I kind of have a generalist background. And yeah, super excited to be here and answer your questions.
Thank you. And our last panelist is Chivelle. Would you mind introducing yourself, please?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you to the LifeSci team for having me. My name is Chivelle Mendoza. I graduated from City College of New York in 2021 with my master's in translational medicine degree. I currently work as a clinical research coordinator and a genetic counselor assistant in the Department of Medicine at Columbia University Medical Center. My area of studies is in nephrology research, where we focus on genomics and genetic related diseases. So to give a little more background of myself, I initially started pursuing a nursing career. In 2015, I was employed at New York Presbyterian in Queens. While employed there, I enrolled in the nursing program, but I just felt like something was missing and it was not my passion. And I had always had a keen interest in science, technology, and I knew my passion was like in biomedical sciences. So therefore I pivoted, dropped out of nursing school, and enrolled in a Bachelor of Science degree and with a concentration in medical sciences. While there, I joined the RISE initiative program, and this allowed me to work part-time as a research lab assistant in neurology at SUNY Downs State Medical with the Dean of Graduate Studies, Dr. Mark Stewart, which his research was more aimed at understanding systemic consequences for sudden death epilepsy. So now I make my shift to nephrology and currently at Columbia here.
Thank you. Thank you all for giving a really quick introduction to your career point right now. And so I'm going to go ahead and get started with our questions. So Sharon, please, thank you for sharing your screen. And to start off, my first question is, how did you decide on getting into or getting interested in the life sciences field? And I'm going to pass it to Ragini. Do you mind starting off for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So during my undergrad, my degree was technically general engineering, and I did a little bit of a focus on electrical engineering and computer science. And I honestly was super confused as to like what kind of things I wanted to work on going forward. And luckily I got the opportunity to apply those technical skills I had to a biomedical setting through a capstone project that was sponsored by a comprehensive cancer center back in Los Angeles. So that really was my introduction to biomedical engineering as a field. And it is a very vast and multidisciplinary field within itself as well. And I found it to be the perfect intersection for where I could apply my technical skills and also make a positive impact. And that was something I was really looking for. And I was lucky enough that my first few professional experiences helped me realize this passion of mine of helping people, and then also using all of this math and science knowledge I had spent many years acquiring. So yeah.
That's really exciting to hear, and thank you for sharing that. Chivelle, can you tell us how did you get interested in the life sciences? I know you kind of covered it in your intro, but if there's anything else you want to share, please go ahead.
Sure. Mine is a little funny story though. After graduating with my Bachelor's of Science, I was still like kind of unsure exactly the direction I really wanted to go, because I knew I like medical science, but I also like technology, and I never knew that you can encompass the both. So I was actually on my way to a PA open house at City College, and while there we got lost, and then while I was asking a student for directions, I saw the MTM program and end up to go into that open house, and it ended up just being a perfect fit for me. Because of that program, I was just honed in, and there I met the director of the program, Dr. Garnich, and the assistant director at that time, Dr. Stukes. And it was like an epiphany moment for me, and I felt that is where I belonged and just what I needed. And an added bonus, while in the program, we were invited to the LifeSci program to just like you guys here today, to come to this initiative program and the internships. And I came and I attended. So I was once in your shoes. I attended, and I was really amazed at the opportunities that they had for internships, full-time, part-time. And I signed up right away, and that is how I got started with the program. And it was open to a lot of opportunities for me in the LifeSci program.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. And then Shiraz, do you mind go ahead and telling us about how you got interested in the life sciences field?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, like I had mentioned earlier, I was in finance, right? I actually went to undergrad and went into like a banking analyst program, and I was very much along the routes of finances and investments. Eventually working and moving up into a hedge fund, which makes equity investments in a number of different sectors. And one of the sectors in which we were looking at was the healthcare sector. And we were specifically and particularly excited at that point in time about the potential of precision medicine and the idea of personalizing medicine and catering to an individual DNA in order to increase its efficacy, right? And when we had done analysis of all the different sectors that were out there, it looked like the idea of precision medicine was going to create a tremendous amount of growth and opportunities, and create a strong demand for people with computational skill sets, technical skill sets, programming, statistics. A lot of that was going to be increased in a significant way in the very near future. And so that's kind of what got me going and got me excited. And so my first step was to go back to school. As I had mentioned earlier, I went to Stevens Institute of Technology in order to get my Master's of Science in Statistical Analysis. And while I was at Stevens, I came to know of LifeSci, which did a really great job of kind of aggregating all of the opportunities that are available to students in the greater New York City area, and kind of allowed me to go through and pick and choose which particular opportunities I thought would be maybe a good fit for some of the unique skill sets that I brought. And that's kind of how I came to know about opportunities at the Center for Precision Medicine and Genomics at Columbia University, where they have a bioinformatics team that was hiring. And so thanks to LifeSci, I was able to secure an internship while I was still a student at Stevens. And upon the completion of my internship, I continued working there on a part-time basis while finishing my master's degree, and then continued to work there for an additional, I think, two and a half years. So yeah, like I said, it was just a really kind of like a pursuing an interest and kind of seeing where it went, and then kind of realizing and discovering that the skill set that I developed in one field was very much translatable to where healthcare is going.
Thank you. And that's so nice to hear that even though you were studying in finance, you were able to like translate a lot of your skill sets. And that's something we share with our applicants all the time, but we just want to help them build the confidence that even though you might have like a business background, you could still help out in the life sciences industry, and vice versa. If you have a really strong science background, you could help with the business side too. So just keeping that in mind, like as everyone here is continuing to pursue their career. Thank you for sharing that. And then Eddie, can you tell us, how did you get into the life sciences field?
Sure. Okay, so mine is a bit of a journey. So to start off, my father is a doctor, and a lot of my uncles are also medically involved in some way, dentists, pharmacists, whatnot. So from a young age, I was always exposed to the idea of the medical world, and also being told one day you're gonna grow up and be a doctor, just like your father. And as a young little boy, I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I'm gonna do. But also like even at a young age, I also always had this feeling that I wanted to work in a lab. I wanted to do some of the behind the scenes things that were going on. I wanted to mix chemicals, and maybe part of that is attributed to my obsession with Dexter's Laboratory as a kid. Maybe I'll be like a mad or evil scientist, but as I got older, particularly in high school, I was getting a lot of pressure externally from people around me saying, you should be a pharmacist, you'll make just as much money as a doctor, but you won't work as hard, which is is a very skewed perception, especially I would say. But I wasn't the only one who was facing that pressure, actually, because when I went to undergrad, which I didn't talk about that much in my introduction, I apologize about that, but I went to LIU Brooklyn for my undergraduate degree. And when I went there, me and many other students were attending that university to become a pharmacist. So I was on the pre-pharmacy track. And then there was a certain point, I would say about a year and a half into my undergrad studies, where I realized, this isn't really what I wanted to do. And I was also working at a pharmacy for about 4 years during that time as well. So I had a pretty good understanding of what I would be doing every day as a pharmacist. Now, there are a lot of different types of pharmacists as well, but I was working as a retail pharmacist in a local pharmacy within my community. And so I realized like I hated this. It was fun for like the first year, but I felt that I was destined for a lot more than just counting people's pills and hearing people complain about co-payments and whatnot. So I decided to switch gears and pursue my passion, which was biology. I wanted to study research. I wanted to be a scientist. And a lot of the people that were giving me the original external pressure of like, oh, you should be a pharmacist, were giving me equal challenge by saying, you won't make a good living or career as a scientist. You're not going to make so much money. You're not going to have a good quality of life. And I was determined to prove everyone wrong, because I knew that not only that wasn't true, but I also wanted to set an example that if you really put in the effort and put your mind into something that you truly love and want to pursue, you can make it work. You just don't give up. That's the way to go. So I switched to a biology major, and I actually was able to graduate from undergrad a year early because of the fact that I switched, and I was really putting in so much effort into trying to finish as many classes as I could. And so when I graduated, I was like, great, I have a year to spare. I'm a year ahead of the curve, I would say. Let me try to get a job. And I realized how difficult it was. I'm sure all of you are experiencing, to some extent, a paradox in which many people experience, where jobs will say they want you to have experience to get a job, but in order for you to get that experience, you need a job to begin with. So it's like a catch-22. And so for that year, I was having a tough time, and I realized like, okay, maybe I need to get an advanced degree. Maybe that's the way to go. So I went to St. John's University for my master's degree in biotechnology. And I really wanted to really do my best to make the most of my time. I didn't want to just go and attend my classes. I wanted to make sure I was getting experience, and that meant reaching out to different professors to see if I could get some time spent in their lab doing things. And they had a career fair one time at St. John's, and that's when I came across the booth for LifeSci NYC. And I had a very similar trajectory to Shiraz, where I was in graduate school and I saw LifeSci NYC. I applied, I got an internship, and I was working. I was working. I started my internship in the summer, but after it ended, I was able to continue working there part-time while I was finishing my last year of grad school. And then, like I mentioned previously, I graduated right when the pandemic hit. So it was kind of good timing in terms of graduation, but also since I was at a startup biotech company, it also meant that the finances were limited once the pandemic hit and I had to be let go for financial reasons. But that's sort of really how everything started off and where I ended up now.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sure a lot of our audience members can relate with deciding like, oh, should I continue with school, going into grad school and so on. And it's also really nice to hear in our career panels that sometimes you're like into this career path. Like for you, it was being a pharmacist, and then you decided that, hey, this isn't working out for me. It is nice to know that there are actually other opportunities too. And just like we mentioned before, like your skills, your courses, some of it can still be transferable, and then you could continue in a different route. And it's just as important to figure out what you don't like and what you like, so you know a better way to kind of define your pathway in the future. So thank you for sharing that. All right, so thank you. So my next question is, what courses and experiences did you find most helpful in preparing you for your career? Chivelle, would you mind starting us off, please?
Absolutely. So for me, within the MTN program, I think that it definitely encompassed everything I desired. So for me, having that knowledge of the biodesign technology, using research to address all the unmet clinical needs with strategies and critical thinking was quite an experience. And it's just some of the tools that I've used in that program, which I apply now to my current field of study. It's just so uncanny to me to see how valuable the knowledge I learned in graduate school and how I apply that now in my day-to-day. But definitely more so because I am more in research. I love research. As Eddie mentioned too, I love the background, knows to help and solve the problem, helping to be that part of the team that comes up with a solution. And learning that in my program, so addressing those unmet clinical needs, those challenges in medicine that has not been addressed. Though that is one of the main focuses that I use right now as a clinical research coordinator, even in my other part of my job as a genetic counselor assistant. I am in the lab a lot. I have one-on-one course collaborations with other stakeholders like outside labs, and that I learned all of that knowledge and skills within the MTN program that helped me to be able to deal with it now in my current position.
Great, thank you. Shiraz, do you mind sharing any courses or experiences you found most helpful in preparing you for your career?
Absolutely. So I guess, in the world of bioinformatics, programming skills are highly sought after. So anything that can help you better understand how to use things like Python, things like R, script-based tools, also version control systems such as Git are also highly sought after because that is what allows teams of bioinformaticians to work on the same program simultaneously and then push their edits and request approval by their managers. And then, because bioinformatics has a bit of a research slant to it, if you can bring forth any sort of statistical insight, that is also highly sought after and appreciated in this field. It's, in fact, a lot of times, if you are a bioinformatic that is kind of like specializing in statistics, they actually will call you a biostatistician. In my experience, bioinformaticians and biostatisticians tend to work hand in hand together. And so the same skill sets such as data analysis and programming and statistics are all kind of deployed towards the same projects. I do want to point out, though, that bioinformatics is not the same thing as software engineering. So for those of you who might think that a bioinformatician is basically just a software engineer with biological background training, I would actually say that it's not as technically rigorous as a software engineer. So I just wanted to make that distinction. But other than that, you know, technical skill sets, programming skill sets, and statistical analysis is highly sought after in this field.
Thank you for sharing. Ragini, do you mind telling us what course and experiences you found most helpful in preparing you for your career?
Yeah, sure. So I can answer this in the context of medical devices in particular. So what I found the most helpful was like project-based design classes. So specifically, my master's university offered a class called Biomedical Innovation. I think this is touched upon before, but it really walked you through the whole process of designing a medical device. So starting from identifying an unmet need, validating that with stakeholders, conducting a lot of customer and stakeholder interviews, thinking about the design space, how you could tackle this unmet need, and then going as far as doing proof of concept and also building a business case around the product that you're envisioning. So I find project-based classes like that to be most helpful because it helps contextualize everything you're learning in a real-world setting. And I've also found all internships and research experiences along the way, again, are super helpful with that contextualization of like your classroom learning into a real world scenario. And I also feel like it can be a confidence boost in terms of like, oh, I'm at my job or I'm at working in this research lab and working on a very real world problem. And I do have all these skills that I picked up in the classroom to tackle this situation.
Thank you. And thank you for also just sharing about the confidence, because a lot of times we get applicants signing up for office hours and we see like really impressive resumes and they just don't feel the confidence that they do qualify for the job. So I just want to emphasize to everyone here that most of the time when you're reading a job description, they're seeking an ideal candidate. This ideal candidate may not exist. It's who they want. If you feel that you meet most of the qualifications, go ahead, write a cover letter and apply anyway. Because if you don't apply, then your chance is zero. So just keep that in mind and like be more confident about your skill sets too. And then Eddie, can you share what courses and experience you found most helpful in preparing you for your career?
Sure. So my intention with grad school was sort of specific. I'm also in a very, I will say I'm in a very niche kind of job compared to the rest of my colleagues here on the panel. Like I do a lot of like direct lab work. Maybe I think Ragini has some similarity with me on that, but I do a lot of stuff on the bench. And so when I went to grad school, my goal was that I wanted to go to a program that not only would set me up with the right network of people that I can reach out to try to increase my chances of getting a job, but I also wanted to make sure that I was getting actual experience. For the kind of job I work, you can know A through Z for any kind of scientific topic, but if you don't know how to apply in a lab or you don't know how to physically do assays, which people can be trained to do such things, but if you don't know how to do them to begin with, it's going to be very hard to get a lab-based role. And so when I was facing that catch-22 issue of like, oh, I need experience, but no one is offering me a job to get experience, that's when I realized, okay, I needed to go the route of getting an internship or some kind of experience. And so when I was in grad school, there were a lot of courses that I took that were very relevant and, provided a lot of information that, helps me even to this day. But I will say what really went the most for me was the actual experience I got. So I wanted to make sure that I reached out to professors as soon as possible and asked them like, hey, can I be a part of your lab? Even if it's just the tiniest little thing, maybe passaging some cells or shadowing someone who's doing an experiment. And I really wanted to make the most out of my time there. And so when I saw the LifeSci NYC internship, I was like, okay, this is definitely a path forward, because there was also the way my graduate program was structured was that in the last semester of grad school in the biotechnology program at St. John's, it's designed so that students are meant to apply and get an internship. And the last semester, instead of courses, you're just completing a project working at a biotechnology company, and that would be considered your credits. And I didn't want to wait till the last semester. I wanted to get a head start, and I wanted to start looking, even after my first year. So that's what really went the most for me. With that internship experience that I got at the biotech that I was working at, I was able to fill up my resume with a lot of things. And, I never would have expected my resume to look like the way it did when I finished my internship, but it really livened up a lot of the skills and experience that I had. And I was working at that company for about a total of 10 or 11 months, I would say. And at the end of my time there, I was able to actually put my name at as part of a patent application on my resume. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm 23, 24, however, and I already have my name on a patent. Like, that's crazy. I also got a publication. I was part of a publication with that company as well. So it was really the physical experience and me really seeking that out more than the actual classes that took me all the way. Although the classes were, of course, just as helpful, because you need to know the background of what you're physically doing as well. So that's sort of how it was for me in my situation.
Yeah, and that's really impressive to get the patent and have publications early in your career. And I also really want to emphasize the point where you said that you reached out to professors just to ask if any of them needed help. So for our audience today, if you feel that you don't have a lot of experience, something you could do on your own is start either joining student clubs or organization, whether you play a role as a participant or having a leadership position, or even just reaching out to contacts at your school, whether it's professors or counselors, to just see if they know of anyone that might be seeking additional help, whether in a lab or on a project, something to kind of get your foot in the door. And you just never know where that opportunity leads. Maybe they never thought about considering someone at their lab or help them with their project, but now that they see that you have initiative, they'll be more, most of the time, they'll be more open to accepting you to help out with their project or at their lab. So thank you for sharing that. And then my next question is, what advice would you offer a student interested in pivoting or starting to think about a career in the life sciences? And whether it's advice for a current student, or maybe it would have been an advice you wanted to give in your past self just to kind of help you get to where you are today. And I'm going to call on Shiraz.
I think my advice is pretty simple. I think if you have any sort of hesitation, or you think maybe you don't have the right skill set or the right background, my advice is to just give it your best shot, and to not be afraid to really put yourself out there. And even if you feel like your skill set isn't a traditional fit for a job description, I'm pretty much living proof that it can happen, right? That skills can translate even from non-traditional backgrounds. So you never know until you try, right? And if you have a genuine passion and a genuine interest in your line of work, that's going to shine through in your interview, and the right place will pick you up. So I mean, that would be the one thing that I would put out there more than anything else. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really important to kind of take your chances. Ragini, do you have any advice you would share to your past self or to a student interested in the life sciences?
Yeah, definitely. So, as reflected by the panelists, like life science is a super diverse and super broad field. And I think we've touched upon this, like any type of skills that you have, there is going to be a place for you in the life science industry. And in terms of narrowing down what specifically you might be interested in or might want to learn more about, I think the best way is to talk to people. And a panel like this is a great way to start. Just ask people. I know this is frustrating advice to get, like talk to people, but that's the only way you can really figure out what you would like to do. So more like getting the sense of like, hey, this is the person whose job looks cool. What does their day-to-day look like? Would that be something I'd be interested in doing? Something as simple as like just looking at job descriptions. What do jobs, like jobs that you might want are looking for, reaching out to people on LinkedIn who work at that company. You'd be surprised by how much people are willing to give you their time and talk to you. So yeah, just doing your research, talking to people. And again, because as it is such a multidisciplinary and diverse field, I think there is a place for everyone to contribute.
Yeah, and that's really great advice is just start talking to people. And even if that person might not be able to answer your questions, they might know someone within their network that they would be able to connect you with. So thank you for sharing that. Eddie, how about you? What advice would you share to either your past self or to a student interested in the life sciences?
So the most important thing that I would say, which Ragini touched on a little bit, is networking. Networking is arguably the most powerful tool that's going to help you get your next job, because the more people you know, the more your network expands, and the more visibility you get, the more chances you have of meeting someone who's like, hey, I can help you, connect you with this person who's hiring, or I know someone who I think would be a really good fit for what you're looking for. So networking is really of utmost importance. For me, personally, I applied to hundreds of jobs, combining both of the year that I took between undergrad and graduate school, and during the pandemic. Well, the pandemic was also a very finicky time, but I was applying to hundreds of jobs during both of those times, and especially during the pandemic, my resume, I would say, looked really impressive, and it was just so heartbreaking to me to like apply to so many jobs and get rejected so many times. It really started to take a toll on me. And I also want to emphasize to people that don't give up no matter how hard things are, because, if it sounds corny, it sounds cliche, I know, but if you really just keep putting in your effort and you make sure that you see your plan through to the end, whatever happens after then, at least you could say you gave it your all. But if you really do put in the effort, I believe that everyone can achieve what they seek to do if they just don't give up. And so after really trying so hard of applying left and right to all these places, I found a piece of advice online that I was like, hey, this is actually really interesting. Let me try this out. And what it was, it told me that I should go on LinkedIn and try connecting with people who either work the job that I would be I would like to work at, or working a kind of managerial or more senior position of a role that I would like to work as. Connect with them and ask them, hey, like, what are like the most important qualities that this company seeks in candidates who are applying, or how did you get to where you currently are? And that kind of networking is really what helped me the most, because I was able to get in touch with people who were working at Pfizer, and after speaking to them and after talking about what I really wanted to achieve, I was able to get help with more networking and referrals, and it really helped me get the job that I was struggling so hard to get for a very long time. So networking is of utmost importance, I would say, and that applies in not just work, but also in school, in online professional social platforms like LinkedIn. Talk to your professors, ask them if they know someone who needs help with anything, like Sally said, and just be social.
Thank you. Chivelle, do you have any advice that you would like to share?
I think the other panelists covered most of everything as well. I'm just going to piggyback off of what was said, that it's very important to market yourself, put yourself out there, make connections, apply, find the programs and use that are being offered to you, apply. Even if you feel you might see, sometimes you might be applying and you would see a list of requirements and you'll be like, okay, this doesn't, I don't have everything there. Don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself. Apply, because there are moments in time when they might see something in you and they're willing to train you in the area that you might think you don't have the skill set for. So don't limit yourself. Apply to it if you see that you have the skills in different areas, but you can be a fit for that. Go for it. Network, make, as it was said before, to make connections, apply for programs, get yourself out there, just market yourself. And as Ragini said earlier, just have that confidence within yourself and know that you're capable. Don't look at any other person's journey and say and tell yourself, okay, well, they probably achieve this because they're smarter or they do this. Just don't look at anybody else's journey. Focus on you at that point in time. Don't limit yourself, and know that you can accomplish what you want to as well.
Thank you. That was very heartfelt. So that was nice to share. And I know we only have about 15 minutes and I do want to have a Q&A session from our audience, but really quickly, in like 30 seconds, can you share what are you most proud about while working in your industry? Eddie, do you want to go first?
Yes, what I'm most proud about is the impact that I get to have in my job. I knew that this job was going to have a high impact simply because, Pfizer is one of the biggest names in the biotech world, but it wasn't until I actually started doing my day-to-day work that I realized, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that, like, these simple things I'm doing now, compound and snowball into like these greater things, and down the line, these vaccines that are actually going to be in the market and being delivered to people originated from what me and my colleagues do here. So the impact has definitely made me the most proud of my work.
Thank you, Eddie. How about you, Ragini?
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I think I'm really proud of the fact that I get to work on products that make a positive impact in people's lives and make people's lives easier and more comfortable. And I was lucky enough that I actually directly got to talk to a lot of the customers that Lilu has and directly hear from them about how our products are helping them or how our future products that we are testing with them can be modified to make greater impact. And working at such a small startup, I got to directly hear from moms themselves, and that's super fulfilling.
Thank you. Chivelle, how about you? What are you most proud about?
The impact as well that I have on my patients and helping them get solutions or results to answers that they did not know before. So my focus right now is in transplant, and sometimes there is a vigorous testing and evaluation that patients have to go through before, and sometimes there are different genetic impacts that they're not aware that they have, and that it could be passed on to family members. So being part of a team that is able to give some answers for them and help them move further on to get a solution for their own health and medical benefit, and also help other members in their family. So being a part of that team to be able to give them those answers, that's definitely rewarding for me.
Thank you. And Shiraz, what are you most proud about?
I'm really excited for where the field is going, right? So from my perspective, data in terms of DNA sequencing is being captured at a greater level of detail than ever before, right? So for context, when the field of informatics participates in a research publication, it's usually to implicate a novel risk gene and argue for an association of that novel risk gene with a phenotype, right? And that was based off of what's called DNA sequencing, which is kind of capturing at a very small, like microscopic level, the DNA data and the mutations that occur in a person's DNA. And until recently, that was done for most research publications for the for a process that was called whole exome sequencing, and that only focuses on the 1.5% of the human genome that is responsible for encoding proteins. And so now what we've seen recently, thanks to advances in technology, is a greater focus and emphasis on what's called whole genome sequencing. So now we're looking at the entire DNA, right? A real game changer. So there's 98.5% of the DNA not directly responsible for encoding proteins that we're now looking at, and we're looking for mutations there in order to come up with newer associations for novel risk genes and argue for greater associations between mutations these mutations that are implicated with these rare diseases, right? So when you think about like data size and data processing, it scales at an astonishingly high rate, right? So for example, a typical family, a single family where you're evaluating their DNA would be a mother, a father, and what's called a proband, which is a child that has the disease that's being studied. And if you're doing whole genome sequencing for all three samples, that comes out to about 40 terabytes of data, right? And for context, your typical iPhone has about 1/4 a terabyte of storage space. And so imagine 40 terabytes of data, right? And that's just one family. And these studies usually involve several hundred families, if not thousands. So I'm really proud of where this field has gone in terms of just the sheer volume of data that it's been able to kind of process and drive down the cost of creating this data and analyzing it in order to really advance the field of medicine.
Thank you. Thank you all four of you for joining us and like answering all of these questions. So now I'm gonna go ahead and open up the questions. So if the audience, if you have any questions, feel free to send it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and you can unmute yourself to ask. So Mary asks, what does your day-to-day look like? Does any one of our four panelists want to start off?
I'll go for it. Why not? So my day-to-day is kind of a doozy. There are different departments here at Pfizer that focus on different parts of making a vaccine. But within and I'm in the viral vaccine department specifically. There's like clinical testing departments and whatnot. But even within the department, I would say my day-to-day has very much depended on the team I'm in specifically with my bosses. And it can get really hectic because I feel grateful to be part of a team that my bosses are very ambitious, and we like to do as many things as possible. We ask as many questions to try to figure out these answers for these challenges that we've come across. And so even though I do a lot of lab work, there will be weeks where I'm just stuck in the lab all day, and then the next week I am by my desk all day figuring out other stuff, or reading literature papers and trying to come up with my own protocols and whatnot. So in between all of that as well, I deal with trying to either train or help guide other people on my team to learning different things or figuring out how to accomplish another task. So it's very hectic and diverse, but it's just this whole really lovely mix. At least for me, it's lovely. This really wonderful mix of being able to mix what I do in the lab as well as putting things back into data analysis on the computer, and then figuring out steps forward while also collaborating with people around me and being able to communicate scientific findings with my colleagues.
Thank you, Eddie. And if anyone else has anything to share, they can, but we are starting to get more questions, so I want to move on. Okay, I think I'm getting nods from our panelists, so So Lena asks, or Lena is an undeclared undergrad freshman and has an interest in sciences, but does not have a background in it because Lena is just now exploring different fields to try and figure out what Lena loves and wants to do. Any advice for someone like this who's really unsure and kind of lost?
I could take that for someone who was in nursing and was not sure what part of science I wanted. My advice to you, Lena, would be to you can just explore the different colleges that you might have interest in. Sometimes they give a lot of free conferences. Attend different ones. There's a lot of different areas of studies because there's such a broad range of different parts of science that you can look into. Attend them and see which ones that resonate with you. You might go tune on something in nephrology, something in molecular, something in bioengineering. Just attend them when you have time. Take time and go to the free ones. It doesn't take nothing on you, and that can help you kind of discover, gauge and discover where your interests might lie.
Thank you. The next one from Della is one of the biggest takeaways from this is that it's about who we know that will determine our success in finding a job. All of you were emphasizing the importance of networking and increasing our contacts. And yeah, I do agree that a lot of times having a really large network or just starting to chat with people that you know, or even reaching out via LinkedIn or with your professors, that could really help you in finding and securing a job. Next one is, how important is it to have a background in the relevant field to get into the life science industry as a consultant? Anyone have any feedback on that?
If no one's going to chime in, all right, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's hard to say because I don't think any of us are in consulting, but I think for consulting, it's your general problem solving skills. And that, yeah, lies true for most jobs. And I think I don't want to misspeak because I don't know enough, so maybe someone else wants to chime in.
I can add a little bit to that. So, given the large amount of employees that Pfizer has, I've interacted with people who have had career changes, and one of those things include people who think about consulting after leaving the lab space, and so I think, and once again, I'm not a consultant, so I can't really speak 100% on this, but based on what I've been told by people, I think it's important to have a deep understanding and knowledge about the topic that you're going to be consulting about. So, someone who wants to leave the lab and be a consultant on figuring out what's the best kind of experiments or the best kind of way to create a program for whatever treatment you're trying to put together to combat a disease. If you don't really have a deep understanding of the individual steps at the detailed level and how that all translates into the bigger picture of getting to the end goal, I think that's going to be a big drawback. So it's I wouldn't say, once again, this is just my observation, but I think to go into consulting, it's a lot more about how well you know your subject matter and how well you're able to communicate it, rather than how well you're actually able to perform the specific things that your client is going to. But then again, in order to really have that deep understanding, you should still have some kind of functional understanding of the detail. I do also want to point out one quick thing about an earlier comment. Someone mentioned that it seems like where you end up is determined by a particular person you network with. I do want to rephrase that a little bit. I don't think your future lies in the hands of one individual person or someone's going to determine whether or not you get a job just by networking. I think the emphasis is that by expanding your network, you expand your chances of being considered for a job and getting more hits and visibility by hiring managers. But at the end of the day, it's also going to mainly be up to you and what you offer the company and what you bring to the table in whether or not you will get a job offer or not. So just wanted to mention that a little bit.
Thank you. And I know we are about a minute until the end of our career panel. We are getting some like direct questions to specific panelists, but there seems to be interest whether the audience members can reach out to our panelists today. If you're okay with that, we can follow up later and maybe the audience members, they could send you a LinkedIn message. So for LinkedIn, when you want to connect with someone, it's really important to have a message. And in your message, it's important to say like, hey, like do a quick introduction of yourself and also share about how you found out about the person. Like for this instance, you could be, hey, I attended the career panel and I was really interested in your talk. Would it be okay if we could connect and I could ask you a few questions? That way the person knows why you're connecting and then they can decide whether or not to accept your invitation, which I'm sure they are. But just to let you know, when you are connecting with someone, LinkedIn is really important to have that message. And with that, I just wanted to thank all four of our panelists for giving up an hour of their evening to help reach out to our students and just talk about where you are in your career. And it's been really inspiring to hear all of this information. And thank you again. And it's great to have you part of our program, and we hope to see you soon.